interesting for me to listen to a few of the previous talks. I'm sorry, but I'm going to talk to you about something completely different. We all know of pollen because of our allergies, and some of them might know pollen because we just love honey. But maybe a few in the audience know that pollen are among the most numerous and resistant fossils in the Earth's fossil record. So what I'm trying to do, and try not to bore you also, is to see what we can do with them. Maybe I should close this. Yes, here. So pollen are produced in huge numbers by all flowering plants. That means that they have a history of at least 300 million years, as all the geologists know. And they are tiny. They're very small. They are from 10 to 150 microns. And they are dispersed by air. Their outer wall is very resistant. And this means that they are very easily preserved. If you take a pollen from the Carboniferous and the pollen from the present, the chemical analysis will show you exactly the same thing. So this resistant tiny little fossil can be found in all kinds of sedimentary deposits. And in 1916, Leonard von Post was the first to publish first pollen diagrams. You will see a lot of pollen diagrams today, showing how we can use this little fossil to reconstruct vegetation. And this was the beginning of the development of a very powerful discipline, which is called palynology. And through this, we can do vegetation reconstruction. We can discuss about past climate, paleoecology, past environment. And as we're coming towards today, we can discuss about how humans interact with their environment. So the main reason we can do this is just because every plant produces a very distinct pollen. So from the pollen, the fossil pollen, or the modern pollen, we can identify the plant. If you consider also that those little grains are produced in huge numbers, you can understand that we find them also in huge numbers. So we can make all kinds of statistical analysis and have numerous and quantitative data on them. So what? Why? Why are we so interested in? Here you can see some very nice pollen. Pollen assemblages, this is what we retrieve from its sediment, reflect the vegetation of the past, but also as it is a microfossil in the broad term, we can use it to record shifts in vegetation cover and composition. Also, they discuss about vegetation, and we all know that vegetation is very sensitive to climatic fluctuations. So pollen grains are amongst the more reliable paleoclimatic proxies if you want to describe past climatic conditions. And for example, here you can see vegetation patterns during a glacial period and an interglacial period of the Quaternary. Of course, when discussion comes to climate, you understand how interesting it becomes. Let's go now a bit to paleoclimatic research. The Mediterranean area is known as a hotspot of biodiversity. And also, it happens to be a key site, a key area for paleoclimatic studies. Many big expeditions have targeted the northern Mediterranean margin as an area to recover good long records of the Quaternary vegetation, climatic cycles. In terms of vegetation, it is crucial to understand the response of its to climatic cycles, as the southern part of Europe, the Mediterranean Europe, as we call it, is actually the cradle of all European trees. If you remember the figure before, you remember that during glacial periods, Central and Northern European was devegetated, and the only places where trees and other vegetation apart from steppes or tundra vegetation was has persisted is in the south. So in that perspective, a long core was retrieved from Lake Ohrid here in Balkan Peninsula, and let's see what it can tell us, the pollen. Don't worry, I won't tire you with this very complex diagram, but I just wanted to show you the long record that goes back to 1.4 million years before present, a continuous record, and the high diversity of the plant species that we recovered. It is easier for a non-palynologist to see such a diagram to understand what was happening in the south during the glacial and interglacial periods. So it is clear evidence that during the glacial periods, we had all this vegetation of little scarce trees from here and there, thriving. I'm sorry, I destroyed my office, surviving the harsh climatic conditions, while during warm intervals, we had nice, interesting forests that not only spread it in the Mediterranean area, but also went up to Northern Europe. Another thing, in the Lake Ohrid record, we have a continuous alternation of glacial interglacial intervals. So we have lessons to learn from the past. We have 21 full climatic cycles. Here you can see with green bands the interglacial intervals, with the first one here to be the Holocene, and then all the interglacial stages back in time. And it is a very nice history of how our area responds to the climatic variability. You can see how direct is the response from the isotopic curve, that is the marine isotopic curve that is plotted on the left. Still, there are very interesting paleoclimatic lessons to be learned from this side. This nice diagram shows the reconstruction of precipitation back in time for the last 800,000 years. And you can very nicely notice those nice red peaks that are extremes in rainfall, flooding events. Actually, what we evidence even today, which was a common feature of the Mediterranean climate during very warm intervals. What we experience today with floods, with heavy rains, with all those extreme events has happened the same way. The same pattern has been observed also in the past. I'm running. I'm sorry, but I'm running. But moving towards today, there are even more things and more detailed things to find out using pollen. Holocene vegetation history is very well documented. However, when we're coming closer to today, the signal is having a very dual character. It's not just climate, but of course, it is also us. It is the human presence and the human activities that became another shaping factor of the environment, apart from climate. And this is gradually evidenced immediately after the spread of agriculture in Greece, and this is the diagram, the spread of agriculture in all Europe, sorry, I mentioned in all Europe, and the establishment of permanent villages, permanent places where people were staying. The Neolithic revolution was the point where vegetation stopped to be a signal for climate, but it is something in between. Is it the climate, is it the environment, or is it just us? So what we see today, what we see around us, is actually a palimpsest landscape. It is the result of the continuous and diachronic interaction between people and their environment. And in this perspective, vegetation has played a very crucial role, as actually vegetation was a resource that all human societies is using. Of course, there is a variation in the scale of the impact of human activity on vegetation and on ecosystems, as there are also a range of activities, depending on their culture, on their population. Human societies were affected in a different way, which was their way of changing the environment by using cultivation practices, herding, by cutting the forest, by using the natural resources that were in their vicinity. And there are a lot of spatial and temporal variabilities, both in dominant activities, both of the results of those activities that on the environment. However, pollen analysis is a key tool for us to understand what had happened in the past. Early land use has been clearly evidenced through pollen records, and here is just a small case study from a nice in this Pillot. This is the site where the excavation took place. So imagine around 7,000 years ago here, the area filled with dwelling houses, people using this pottery with diagrams. So starting from 7.5 thousand years to 5.5 thousand years before present, this is the vegetation development of the landscape. And if we want to read this, we can see the beginning. This is the inauguration of people in the area. So this is the older phase, the beginning with a forest retreat that somehow stopped the point where the forest expanded again, and then another retreat of the forest, and there with pollen records we identify grazing minima, cultivation, and forest clearance, and high rates of soil erosion, and another expansion of forest before the maximum expansion of the site. If we want to see it in another way, this model presents the different phases of the people, of the houses, of the people living there. But it is not just a site. Every site has its own story. If we want to make take big messages, we need to use more data. If we want to speak about societal changes, about changes in culture, if we want to compare our vegetation and paleoenvironmental data with history, with archaeology, we have used regional curves. And here you can see vegetation patterns during the last 10,000 years, during the Holocene, from northern Greece and from southern Greece, and the color scales So what kind of vegetation component participated in the landscape? In this study, what we have tried to do is to compare these shifts in vegetation, for example, this remarkable drop of the deciduous forest in southern Greece, with the population dynamics deciphered from seafaring dates and from archaeological data. And here we can clearly evidence the opening of the landscape of the closed forest as a result of the increasing and cumulative human activity. This is some love a lot because it had a lot of idea behind it in order to make it. Here we use the regional curves of olive and cereals, and you can see them here, the olive and the cereal curves in south and northern Greece, to try to identify cultivation practices that might point into market differences, because just observe the curve of olives. They were producing olive oil in Macedonia, in northern Greece, before the antiquity. They knew the use of olive oil. Still, after a while, this declined and they started producing more cereals, while on the other side, there is a big difference on this. This shows that we've compared those curves with sheepworks and olive presses, and it shows that in Macedonia they preferred to cultivate cereals, which was easier as the landscapes allows it much more, and import olive oil from the south, where the environment was better for this work. This signal is the first representation of the market integration in Greece long before the Roman Empire, that established a unique market in all the Roman known world. I will end up, yes. Moving from a big scale and going to, we lost a slide here. So I will skip this. This was the slide, the correct slide. Move to societal choices during medieval. Here there is a site from upland Peloponnese, a small mountain site, and those are just the last 1 million years. And we can see the shifts in vegetation. So those are the trees that are retreating as a result of a human pressure and expand afterwards a bit. Here, the detailed pollen record allowed a direct comparison with cadastres, with pure economic data from the Ottoman and the Venetian cadastres. And those data can be very detailed, as you see here. So here's the name of the village that is close to the site. And here is the exact description of how much taxes they were paying for wheat, for barley, or for anything that they were producing. So comparing those two data, we came with very interesting, nice consequences, like, sorry, everything's floating. You can see that the increase of cereals coincides very well with the increase in the taxation of cereals. So we are sure now that this is a very robust data set for describing land use. We can see, sorry, this is very sensitive. My mouse is very sensitive. That this increase in animal husbandry tax can be easily seen in the increase of the animal husbandry pollen indicators. That way, and by adding more and more sites close to different small villages, we can tell, and we're trying at the moment to discuss the story between the choices of the population of each village. So one village was Muslim, so they were cultivating certain things, or the other that was Christian was cultivating something different. All those little stories can be added together to make the big story of medieval populations in Greece for this case, but I perfectly know that this exists for other areas of the world as well. And to close up, I would like to just mention that this very valuable proxy has been used to look up pandemics. We especially discussed about the Black Death, a very common known, the known Black Death during medieval times again. So by using this thought that when people are there, they're cultivating the earth, they are using their fields as pastures, so they're producing a signal. If they die, this signal is different because there are less people, so either they're leaving their fields and the fields are not cultivated, so the natural vegetation is regenerated, or they're turning to pastures because this needs less manpower. By trying to see what happened in the past in the environments through pollen and using specific indicators, 4 specific indicators. Here's the map for cereal cultivation. So when it's green, you see that from before to after the Black Death interval, there was either an increase or a decrease in cereal cultivation. Those are the herding evidences. And those 2 diagrams speak about the regeneration of the environment. The fast succession, that means that in a quick way, vegetation like that was expanded in the area. And this is the slow succession, that means that this vegetation took a lot of time to be developed. So showing whether the changes in population in land use was short-lived or permanent. By comparing all those data, which is a mixture, of course, we ended up with this result. Not everywhere in Europe, the Black Death was that catastrophic. There are areas where big changes in land use are evidenced, like in the Mediterranean, in Greece and Italy. However, there are other areas, like in the Baltics, where it seems that not only the area was not affected by the Black Death, but there is also population growth. And we infer this population growth from the land use growth, of course. So to end up with, we have a very powerful tool. And it's a very powerful tool. You can use this tool to understand past and modern vegetation shifts and tie them up to the scientific question Each time you have to reply. And well, thank you for your attention. Sorry for running through several slides. Of course, this kind of thing is a teamwork. This is just a small number of the people that have contributed into this, and I'm happy to answer to any questions.
Yeah, thank you for your interesting talk. We have few comments and question in the chat. Question from Ariadne. Do you think that a signal of the COVID pandemic will appear in pollen records in the future?
At the moment, we're studying the Justinianian plague to check if the signal and the way we treated it is also responding. It is responding. Yes, I think that there will be also a signal in vegetation as well. But of course, a signal, look, what's the problem? If we come to today, there are much more proxies discussing maybe this, but there will be a signal in vegetation as well.
And a lot of plastics in the sediments,
yes,
probably.
there'll be much more plastics than pollen.
Do we have any other question? Again, Alekos and Matea Gosar are thanking you for excellent and interesting presentation. And
I would like to thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. So yeah, I think if there are no more questions, we can thanks again to Professor Kouli. And now we can close this interesting session. And we have a break now for 15 minutes. And then we will have a workshop given by Dr. Robert Finkelman, a living legend of medical geology. So it will be interesting. Please stay with us and see you in 13 minutes.